Hello, my good friends. Welcome to my channel. Let me introduce myself. My name is Andrei Lefebvre. I am a fleet manager at Puente Hills Nissan in California. And this is my second video about car business ever. We're going to talk about financing a car with bad credit today. It is an interesting subject. Many people go through their life and sometimes their credit score just hits the rock bottom for many different reasons. Bankruptcies, divorces, unforeseen health expenditures, whatever it may be. It doesn't really matter. I have to tell you, pretty much anybody in the United States can finance a car. If you're located in within the borders of the United States, there is always a way to finance a car. I am going to go over the most commonly asked questions because my primary business is commercial accounts, and I handle a lot of referral agencies and broker business. But my subprime business keeps on growing. It's up to 20 to 30% on some months. So I can honestly say that I know what I'm talking about. So there are several questions that being asked of me very often about financing a car with bad credit. And before I answer it, I'm going to ask you to subscribe and to repost and retweet if you can. And also want to mention a person that broke me into this business, Jerry. So Jerry, if you're watching this, when I was putting this video together, I was thinking about you because some of the things that I go over, I first heard from you. Actually, most of them I first heard from you. So Jerry, anyways, so one of the question, what if I want to buy a vehicle from a out-of-state dealer? We'll answer that question. What if I am unemployed, if you have no job? Can you buy a vehicle? I'm going to answer that question. What if I had a repossession or 2 or 3 on my record? I'm going to answer that question as well. What if my credit score is below 500 on the Richter scale? The FICO score is below 500. I'm going to answer that question. Can you buy a car? We'll go over that scenario. What if I owe too much on my present vehicle? We'll talk about that. What if I don't have a social security number? We'll definitely talk about that. What if I don't have a down payment? Can I buy a car? We'll talk about that. What if I don't have a driver's license? That's an interesting subject that comes up very often. We'll discuss that. What if I don't have a bank account? We'll talk about those issues. What if I don't have an auto insurance? I'll touch upon that. What if I had a bankruptcy? That's a good question many people ask. We'll talk about it. What if I am in an open bankruptcy? That question comes up once in a while. Can I buy a car if I am going through Chapter 7 or Chapter 11 and it's open, hasn't been dismissed or discharged? We will discuss the possibilities of how to buy a car, or if it's possible. What if I don't have a cosigner? We'll talk about that. What if I don't want to pay a high interest rate, but my credit score is not very high? We will discuss that. So let's dig into it. The first is the question, what if I want to buy a vehicle from an out-of-state dealer? I am in California. Now, again, I work for Puente Hills Nissan. My management allows me to sell cars anywhere within continental United States or anywhere in the world. So, yes, at least from us, Puente Hills Nissan, you can buy a vehicle and I can send it to you. And all the deal can be done through email, internet, text, fax, whatever method, telephone, whatever method of communication you prefer. Yes, the answer to that is yes. What if I'm unemployed? Can you buy a car if you're unemployed, if you have no job? The answer to that is yes. And let me dig into this a little bit because it's a little more complicated than that. Very few people are simply flat out unemployed, no job, and living under the bridge in the card box, no income at all. And actually, even in that scenario, believe it or not, I sold somebody a car many years ago and had a credit union finance them. But that was an aberration. Usually there's a stream of income of some kind. And banks do take that into consideration, even if you don't think about it, even if it's very little, even if it's SSI, even if it's child support, spousal support, even if it's disability, permanent or temporary. There's always, if you have any stream of income at all, there's a way to get you financed. You may not necessarily like the terms, but it's a different story. But there is a lender out there who will finance you. I have to put a disclaimer on it. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a finance officer. I don't work for a bank. I work for a dealership. So whatever information I'm giving you is solely based upon my personal experience because I deal with the banks every day. And California law allows us to act as a conduit between the customer and the bank. So all the information I'm giving you comes from my own personal experience. The next most commonly asked question is, what if I had a repossession? That most definitely does not preclude you from buying a car. I have sold cars to people who had them financed who literally had a very recent repossession and who had just discharged 2 or 3 days before the bank issued the approval. So the answer is yes. What if I have a credit score below 500? Some lending institutions don't really care that much. They all care about your FICO score. They all care what the credit score is. But a lot of them discount that and more interested on different aspects of a person's life, income, down payment, if there is any, etc., etc. So just a mere score in 400s, and I think the lowest I've seen was like in 390s. I do not remember whether we sold that person a car, but I have sold many people cars that had banks finance them whose score was below 500. So yeah, it is definitely possible, and many banks specialize in customers who have that particular profile. I have to warn you, the APR may not be low. It's not going to be low APR, but definitely possible to finance. What if I owe way too much on my current vehicle? Well, that presents certain problems, obviously, if industry terms upside down, underwater, if the loan is higher what the vehicle value is. But there's some banks that are ready and willing to finance the the upside down portion. Down payment always helps. So just being underwater or upside down in the vehicle that you're trading in does not preclude you from buying a car. What if I don't have a social security number? That is a touchy subject. Again, I'm not a lawyer, and if you want legal advice, don't go by me personal experience. Very, very few financial institutions will finance somebody without a social security number. Nissan actually has a program for exchange students, for foreign students. I think I did only 2 of those. So this is something, if you're interested, contact me in person, and we can dive into that one. If you are a recent immigrant and you don't have a social security number, I know at least of one bank, it's Asian owned, located in Los Angeles, that will finance somebody without a social security number, but they do require a large down payment. What if I don't have a down payment? Well, yes, you can finance a car even if your credit is really not good at all without a down payment. We just have to find a right vehicle which has a large rebate which could be used in lieu of the down payment. You have to understand the banks usually have their own criteria how they finance a car. They will finance, let's say, somebody with excellent credit that will finance 100% of the loan, 100% of the tax and license, plus if there are anything else that people want to buy and finance vehicle related on top of the vehicle, such as warranties, alarms, or whatever you may have, your prepaid services, if there is a previous negative equity on the loan. If you have good credit, the banks will finance it. Now, if somebody doesn't have a very good credit, the bank will finance just a percentage, maybe 80, 90, 70, 95% of the loan. If a vehicle such as Nissan Sentra, which has a large rebate, and that rebate could be used as a down payment to satisfy any particular bank requirement. So that is yes, even if you have a bad credit, most of the time you don't have to put any money down. Now it becomes more problematic on the used cars, where over the years it became easier to have the bank finance people with bad credit on new cars. And with used cars, if you have a subprime type credit, with used cars, the way it's structured, you usually need a sizable down payment. Not so on new cars. It's counterintuitive, but that's how the business has evolved. Again, in my experience, it could be different in other states. Again, I'm in California, and for other dealers, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty uniform throughout my industry. If you know different, I would love to know. I'm always eager to learn. What if I have no driver's license? Most definitely you can buy a car. You have to have a picture ID of some kind. Some banks actually, if you are a recent immigrant and you don't have any US ID, some banks actually accept an ID issued by your local consulate. Those lenders become fewer and fewer because of the political situation, but they still exist. Now, if you have just a regular state ID, California state ID, or state ID for any other state, but you don't have a driver's license, the way my management allows me to do is it doesn't preclude most banks from financing you. There's one or two that don't do it, but most of the banks will finance you if you don't have a driver's license. The problematic thing becomes on when the vehicle needs to be driven off the dealership lot. And my management requires that a person with a valid driver's license would actually drive the vehicle off the lot. Of course, the vehicle needs to be insured as well. But this is the answer to that question is yes. If you have no driver's license, you can be financed, and you must definitely buy a car. What if I don't have a bank account? Not a problem. I have never run into a situation where that became an issue to finance somebody or to sell them a car. What if I don't have auto insurance? Now, in California, you have to, by law, you have to maintain auto insurance on your vehicles. So, again, by management, their rule is if the vehicle is not insured, it cannot leave our dealership. However, we can provide insurance, and most of the time we just pay for 1 month binder. If you don't have insurance, we will throw it in as a complimentary thing. Just keep in mind that most of the banks will not fund the loan unless the vehicle is insured. So you don't want to get in trouble with the bank. So when that 1 month binder runs out, by that time you should have a regular insurance. But again, it doesn't prevent you if you walk into the dealership or you buy from me remotely, which I do off-site deliveries very often, and you don't have automobile insurance. We in most cases will simply provide it to you, pay for 1 month binder as a courtesy. What if I had a bankruptcy? That's not a problem at all. We had financed people whose bankruptcy was discharged or dismissed just days before the bank approved their loans. So you may not like the interest rate, but yeah, it perfectly possible. Especially older bankruptcies, there's no stigma anymore. On the social level, I don't know what I think about it, but from the business point of view, I think it's wonderful. What if I am in an open bankruptcy? That's a very interesting question that I have come up again and again and again. Now, it used to be a wisdom that you cannot finance somebody in an open bankruptcy. In my experience, that is not true. Usually, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm talking from personal experience. You need to have, if you are in Chapter 7, you need to have a trustee who oversees the bankruptcy to sign off on it, and then judge may have to sign off on it as well. And there are many lenders that would accept that and will extend you an auto loan. If you're in Chapter 13, the same thing, a trustee or a judge needs to sign off on it. But I'm going to put a big up. I actually had USAA finance a military person without such judge's order or a trustee signing off on it. They simply funded it. So, but it was only one case in many decades. But if you're in open bankruptcy, it doesn't preclude you from buying a car. If you have questions, you're welcome to contact me, and we can discuss your particular case. I can't guarantee anything, but I never bet against myself, and I never turn down business. What if I don't have a cosigner? Yeah, you can buy a car. In many cases, cosigners don't help. In many cases, they do. In many cases, they don't. If you don't have a cosigner, it does not mean you cannot buy a car. It does not mean you cannot get an automobile, an approval on auto loan. Again, you may not like the terms, but it's a different story. But banks, most of the time, there are very, very few cases where the banks flatly deny there is no recourse. There are some special cases which very few fall under. If you just don't have a very good credit and you don't have a cosigner, more than likely you can get financed without it. If you have a question about your personal situation, please contact me. I'm going to put my contact. It's on the. You can right this way. It's right here, or I will put it in the description box. What if I don't want to pay a high interest rate? That's a reasonable question to ask. Nobody wants to pay a high interest rate. I have to tell you that going through negotiations of getting somebody financed on an auto loan is more of an art than it is of a hard rule. Everything can be negotiated, including the interest rates. So there are many times when customers didn't like the interest rates which bank came back with. I would negotiate on their behalf and see if they can make an exception. Can't guarantee that I can do it every time, but I have done it. If you don't want to pay a high interest rate, well, also depends what your definition is of an interest rate. This is something that I'm willing to discuss, and I don't think it's I do not think it's an unreasonable question to ask and an unreasonable position to take. I have no love for the banks. So if I can get my customer approved at a rate that is a lot lower than they originally approved them at, I will rejoice. I will rejoice. So, anyways, so that was a short video on financing a car with a bad credit. Name is Andrei Lefebvre. I work as a fleet manager at Pointy Hills at Nissan. If you have any questions or comments, or you're interested in getting yourself financed, my contact information is right there. I do sell across the state lines, and I do export vehicles, even though it's virtually, there's one case that I didn't cover, but it is impossible for me to finance somebody who is sending a car for export. This is the only time that I can honestly say that I have never had able to finance somebody who was sending a car for export. It calls for a totally different financing in that situation. The regular car financing companies will not do it. I think this is the only case where I can blanketly say that I have never, ever, in my many decades of in the car business, was able to obtain a car loan. But there are other ways. There are other ways of doing this. Anyways, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining me, and we will talk later. Bye bye.